The sun was dipping below the horizon, spilling streaks of molten orange and violet across the California sky. A private airfield, normally quiet at this hour, buzzed with a low, mechanical hum as a sleek, black helicopter descended. Its rotors churned the dry desert air, stirring clouds of dust that shimmered in the last light. Standing by the hangar was Lieutenant Jessica Harper, a striking blonde American soldier with a reputation for confidence. Some called it courage, others arrogance. Her boots clicked sharply against the concrete as she approached the chopper, her movements deliberate, commanding attention. She was on a mission, but not the type that required combat skills. Not yet. This mission demanded perfection, precision maintenance, flawless timing, and an aircraft capable of performing under extreme conditions. And for that, she was being introduced to someone she had already begun to dismiss in her mind. Kazuo Tanaka, the mechanic assigned to the task, was a man of few words. Slightly shorter than she expected, lean but with muscles coiled like steel cables beneath his grease-stained shirt, he exuded a quiet, disciplined energy. His hair was dark and neatly trimmed, and his hands were roughened by years of work. Yet there was an unmistakable calm in his gaze, a stillness that suggested he had seen things most people could not imagine. Jessica tilted her head, smirking at the contrast between his unassuming appearance and the aura of competence that seemed to radiate from him. "So you're the famous mechanic they said is supposed to fix this," she said, letting a teasing tone creep into her voice. Her laugh was sharp, almost rehearsed, the kind that turned heads but made people flinch. Kazuo did not respond immediately. He wiped his hands on a rag, the motion deliberate, methodical, his eyes scanning the helicopter's exterior as if he were reading the machine like a living entity. The hangar lights reflected off the metal, highlighting the intricate lines of the aircraft and the gleaming sheen of its rotors. Jessica raised an eyebrow. "Don't tell me you were in, like, some Japanese army show for kids." She leaned slightly closer, clearly enjoying her little game. Kazuo's lips twitched, a fraction of a smile, almost imperceptible. He said nothing. He never corrected her, not yet. There was a precision to silence that matched the precision in his movements, a measured, controlled energy that made Jessica pause without realizing it. A sudden vibration shook the hangar floor. Jessica's phone buzzed insistently in her pocket. She ignored it at first, irritated, until the message flashed across the screen in bold red letters. "Harper Chopper must be flight ready in 3 hours. Report immediately." Her confidence flickered. She turned sharply to Kazuo, expecting reassurance. Instead, he simply nodded, almost too casually, as if 3 hours were more than enough. "I'll have it ready, trust me," he said, his voice calm even with a tone that brooked no argument. Jessica laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "I'm trusting a guy I just met. This is America, buddy. You sure you can handle it?" Kazuo's gaze sharpened, steady and unflinching. "I can handle it." Jessica's laugh faded as she caught the glint of something unusual near the engine compartment. Kazuo noticed it too, a subtle imperfection, a flaw that would escape the notice of any ordinary mechanic. His trained eyes narrowed. Inside, his mind ran through the scenarios, the calculations, the consequences. One misstep now could turn the helicopter into a death trap. Jessica, oblivious to his internal assessment, tilted her head. "What are you staring at?" Kazuo wiped his hands again and moved toward the engine. "I'm assessing the problem," he said simply. He did not elaborate, but the weight behind his words implied far more than she realized. Jessica's fingers twitched with impatience. "Well, how bad is it? Are we talking hours, days, or are we screwed?" Kazuo didn't answer. Instead, he opened the engine compartment, revealing a labyrinth of wires, rotors, and hydraulic lines. He moved with methodical precision, fingers tracing circuits, testing hydraulics, listening to the subtle hum of tension in metal. Each movement carried the calm authority of someone who had survived situations far more perilous than a rushed repair job in a private hangar. Jessica leaned closer, curiosity mingled with her skepticism. "You move like you've done this 1,000 times." Kazuo did not flinch. "I have," he said simply. Her laughter was sharp again, tinged with disbelief. "You're joking." "No." The moment hung in the air, charged as if the quiet tension of the desert itself had descended into the hangar. Jessica crossed her arms, trying to mask a flicker of unease. "Okay, well, let's see how you handle it." Kazuo's eyes scanned the engine one last time. His gaze caught a worn bolt, its thread slightly stripped, a potential failure point that could prove fatal during liftoff. His jaw tightened. This was no ordinary repair, it was a race against disaster. Jessica tapped her foot impatiently. "You ready, or do I need to get someone else?" Kazuo's fingers worked quickly, tightening the bolt, checking connections, his movements fluid and deliberate. He did not look at her, did not answer her question, but the very air around him shifted. He carried the precision and calm of a man who had jumped from planes at 3 a.m., who had navigated enemy territory with nothing but instinct and training. As the final adjustment was made, a shadow passed across the hangar, subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to make both of them pause. Jessica's phone buzzed again. Another message. "Harper, expect interference. Someone is watching your helicopter. Be careful." Her pulse quickened. She glanced around nervously, eyes darting to the hangar doors. Kazuo noticed but did not speak. His instincts screamed that danger had arrived unseen, and that the coming hours would demand more than their wits. Jessica swallowed hard, her bravado faltering. She turned back to Kazuo. What does that mean?" Kazuo's eyes met hers. The calmness of his gaze belied the storm brewing inside. "It means," he said, voice low and controlled, "that this is no longer just a repair job. Someone wants this helicopter to fail, and if we're not careful, they'll make sure it does." Jessica's mind raced, but her pride clung stubbornly to the surface. "You're being dramatic. It's just a warning, probably some prank." Kazuo's lips pressed into a thin line. Pranks don't issue warnings like that. For the first time, Jessica realized that the man she had mocked, the quiet, slightly stoic mechanic, was not someone to be underestimated. And in that instant, a spark of unease lit her chest. Because Kazuo had already calculated what she hadn't: the engine's weak points, the subtle vibrations, the dangerous bolt, the shadowy presence outside the hangar. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever came next, they were on the precipice of something far bigger than either of them could imagine. Jessica glanced at the helicopter, at the rising wind, at the approaching darkness. A chill ran down her spine. Her hand trembled slightly as she tapped the rotor panel. And as Kazuo tightened the last connection, he looked up at her, expression unreadable, and said, "Ready yourself. This is going to get a lot more dangerous before it gets better." Jessica's heart pounded, a mix of adrenaline, fear, and disbelief. She had mocked him hours ago. Now, she wondered if mocking him had just been the single most dangerous mistake of her life. Outside, the desert wind swirled, carrying the faint sound of something else moving toward them. Neither of them spoke, but both felt it, a silent, invisible threat closing in, something that would test not only their skills but their very survival. And in that suspended moment, with the helicopter humming and the sky darkening, the story of Lieutenant Jessica Harper and Kazuo Tanaka, the unassuming mechanic with the heart of a soldier, truly began. Kazuo leaned over the helicopter's engine, the faint hiss of escaping air mixing with the dusty desert wind. The glow of the setting sun caught on the polished metal, reflecting a maze of wires, rotors, and hydraulic tubing that seemed to pulse with life. He worked with the precision of a man whose every movement had been honed through years of impossible missions, parachute drops at ungodly hours, nights navigating enemy territory with nothing but instinct, and combat drills that had forged him into a living weapon. Every gesture was careful, deliberate, measured. Every motion carried weight. Jessica hovered behind him, arms crossed, foot tapping. "Well, how's it looking?" Her voice dripped with impatience, but underneath, a thread of unease was creeping in. She tried to mask it, tried to pretend she was in control, but the warnings on her phone, the mysterious note about interference, gnawed at her confidence. Kazuo didn't answer. His eyes scanned the engine, focusing on details most people wouldn't even notice. A frayed wire here, a misaligned rotor blade there, a hydraulic line under stress. His fingers moved deftly, testing, adjusting, tightening, as if the machine itself were an extension of his own body. Jessica tilted her head, trying to assess him. "You move like you've done this 1,000 times." Kazuo's voice was calm, almost quiet. "I have." Her laugh was incredulous. "Right, sure. You've flown combat missions in Japan, come on." "No," he said flatly, but there was a weight behind his words, an authority that made Jessica pause just slightly. For a moment the desert air seemed to still, as if holding its breath. The hangar creaked under the wind. Dust swirled around their boots. Then, with the soft click of metal, Kazuo's fingers paused on a bolt. It was worn, nearly stripped, a potential disaster waiting to happen. Jessica leaned over his shoulder, curiosity and skepticism warred in her eyes. "What's wrong with it?" Kazuo's jaw tightened. "If this fails in the air, it won't just ruin the flight. It could kill everyone on board." Her smile faltered. "Kill everyone?" She swallowed hard, trying to regain her usual composure. "Are you serious?" Kazuo nodded, silent, and went back to work. Each adjustment, each twist of his wrist was calculated with precision. Years of training, of facing life-or-death scenarios, guided his hands. Jessica watched, a mixture of awe and frustration brewing in her chest. She wanted to understand, to assert control, but something about his calm efficiency made her hesitate. The sun dipped lower, turning the sky into streaks of deep violet. Shadows stretched across the hangar floor and the temperature dropped suddenly. Jessica shivered. Her phone buzzed again, another alert, vague but urgent. "Harper, trust no one near the chopper. Someone is monitoring." She froze. "Kazuo, someone's watching." Kazuo didn't look up. He didn't need to, he had already noticed. The subtle shift in the wind, the quiet hum from beyond the hangar doors, the faint metallic echo that shouldn't have been there, all signs a trained soldier could pick out instinctively. "Yes," he said quietly, "and it's not a prank." Jessica swallowed hard, her bravado wavering. Who would want to sabotage this helicopter? Kazuo's eyes flicked toward her, sharp, controlled. Someone with the skills to get close, someone patient and someone willing to kill. Jessica's stomach lurched. Her training had prepared her for certain dangers, but this unseen threat, this invisible hunter, was beyond her usual experience. She realized for the first time that she was completely reliant on the man she had mocked just hours ago. Kazuo's hands moved swiftly, checking the rotors, inspecting the engine, testing each hydraulic line. "This helicopter isn't just a machine," he muttered under his breath. "It's a potential death trap if mishandled." Jessica leaned closer, her skepticism slowly giving way to something else, respect, tinged with fear. I underestimated you," she admitted, her voice low. I thought you were just a mechanic." Kazuo didn't answer, but his eyes softened for the briefest moment. Then they snapped back to the engine, every muscle taut, every nerve alert. The wind outside intensified. Dust swirled like ghostly dancers. Jessica heard a faint click behind the hangar, subtle, deliberate. She froze. "Kazuo, did you hear that?" Kazuo's gaze flicked toward the door, sharp, calculating. "Yes," he said calmly. "Someone's inside the perimeter. They're not here by accident." Jessica's heart raced. "Should we call security, the cops?" Kazuo shook his head. "By the time they arrive, it'll be too late." He straightened, moving toward the hangar doors with a fluid, controlled motion that spoke of silent training. "We have to handle this ourselves." Jessica followed, nerves coiling in her stomach like a snake. "Handle this ourselves. You mean fight them. Kazuo's expression was unreadable. I mean survive. That's the only option. Suddenly, a shadow passed across the large glass panels of the hangar. Jessica's eyes widened. There, she shouted. Did you see that? Kazuo's hand instinctively moved toward his belt, but he didn't draw a weapon. Not yet. Instead, he scanned the shadow, analyzing its movement, predicting intent. He didn't flinch. He had faced threats far deadlier than this. Jessica, on the other hand, felt her pulse hammering in her ears. Who is it? What do they want? She whispered, her voice trembling despite herself. Kazuo's eyes narrowed, focusing. I don't know yet, but I'll find out before they find us. The hangar door creaked slowly, just enough to let in a shaft of fatting sunlight. The shadow moved closer, deliberate, precise. Jessica instinctively took a step back, but Kazuo held his ground. He placed a hand on her shoulder, firm but reassuring. You need to trust me, he said. Everything depends on it. Jessica's pride flared, but she knew deep down that this wasn't the time to argue. She nodded, swallowing her fear, letting him guide her. Then the intruder made a subtle move, almost imperceptible but enough for Kazuo to notice. He tensed, coiling like a spring, ready to strike. His eyes flicked to Jessica. Whatever happens next, stay close, and don't speak unless I tell you to. Jessica's throat went dry. Stay close, you mean fight too. Kazuo didn't answer. His attention was entirely on the shadowy figure now crossing the hangar floor, silent as a predator. Every instinct he had learned in the 1st Airborne Brigade kicked in. Time slowed. Each heartbeat, each breath, each sound of shifting metal became amplified, magnified. Jessica realized for the first time that the man she mocked, the quiet, unassuming mechanic, was far more than he seemed. He was a soldier, a survivor, a master of calculated action. And if he wasn't the one in control right now, they were both dead. The shadow paused, almost as if sensing Kazuo's awareness. Then, in a whisper of movement, it advanced. Kazuo's eyes hardened. This ends now, he murmured. Jessica gripped his arm, fear and adrenaline coiling inside her like fire. Kazuo, what do we do? He looked at her, the calm authority in his gaze almost terrifying. We survive, together. And with that, the first real test began. A test that neither of them could have predicted. A test that would push Jessica's assumptions, Kazuo's skills, and the fragile trust between them to the breaking point. Because outside the hangar, beyond the fatting light and the swirling dust, danger had already arrived. And it wasn't waiting politely for introductions. The hangar doors groaned as Kazuo tightened the last few bolts, his fingers moving with a precision born of years, spent in far deadlier environments than a sun-baked desert. Every glance, every adjustment, carried the weight of someone who had learned to survive impossible odds. Jessica Harper, the confident, sometimes reckless lieutenant, watched him with a mixture of awe, irritation, and something she didn't fully understand, curiosity. She had underestimated him before. She wasn't going to make that mistake again, not entirely. Ready? She asked, her voice tight, betraying a flicker of fear she couldn't suppress. Kazuo glanced at her, expression calm but eyes sharp. Fly lightly, don't push it. Jessica climbed into the cockpit, heart pounding. The sleek interior smelled of oil, metal, and ozone. Her hands hovered over the controls, hesitation battling training. She wasn't just flying a machine. She was piloting a fragile, deadly combination of technology and human error, and any misstep could be fatal. Kazuo followed, sliding into the co-pilot seat. His presence was both reassuring and unnerving. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The quiet authority radiating from him was enough. Jessica lifted the helicopter slowly, the rotors slicing the desert air, dust spiraling in chaotic whorls beneath them. At first, the ascent was smooth, almost effortless. Her confidence returned, tinged with pride. See, nothing to worry about, she muttered, though her voice lacked its usual conviction. Then a subtle warning light flickered on the control panel. Jessica frowned. That's not supposed to happen," she said. The calm she had felt moments ago evaporated like mist in the sun. Kazuo's eyes narrowed. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Her voice cracked, betraying her nerves. Kazuo's jaw tightened. "Something is off, something someone didn't want us to find." Jessica's hands clenched the controls. "Off? What do you mean?" Before he could answer, a loud thump echoed from the tail rotor. The helicopter shuddered violently, tilting dangerously to one side. Jessica's knuckles whitened as she fought to stabilize it. Panic prickled her spine. What the hell was that? Kazuo's calm exterior didn't waver. He reached out, checking a few panels, listening intently to the subtle hums and vibrations of the machine. "Sabotage," he said quietly, the word carrying a weight that made Jessica's stomach drop. Her heart raced. Sabotage, who would do that and why? Kazuo's gaze remained fixed on the instruments. Someone with a very specific target, and someone with a lot to lose if this helicopter succeeds. Jessica swallowed hard. She had faced danger before: training exercises, simulated attacks, even real missions. But this was different. The threat was invisible, precise, and deadly. And for the first time, she realized she was entirely dependent on Kazuo's instincts and experience. The helicopter trembled again, a subtle vibration that hinted at far worse. Kazuo's hands moved swiftly, almost invisibly, adjusting the hydraulics, compensating for the sabotage. Each movement was a testament to his training, a dance between life and death where every second counted. Jessica's voice shook. Do you always work this fast?" Kazuo didn't answer. He couldn't. The helicopter's condition demanded his full attention. But she noticed something else: the way he moved, the fluidity, the precision, the almost inhuman calm. She realized she had been wrong about him, and the thought unsettled her more than the machine's tremors ever could. Suddenly, a new alarm blared. Lights flashed across the console. Jessica gasped, barely maintaining control. "We're losing altitude." Kazuo's eyes were sharp, scanning every gauge, every dial, every possible failure point. "Engage manual override," he instructed calmly. "Steady her, hold her." Jessica followed his commands, muscles trembling with the strain. The helicopter stabilized, though barely. The desert stretched below them, a blur of orange and brown. Dust swirled in their wake, a reminder of how close they had come to disaster. Kazuo exhaled sharply through his nose. "The sabotage isn't complete. Whoever did this left traces, mistakes." His eyes flicked to Jessica. "They underestimated me." Jessica's chest heaved. "Underestimated you? You're a what? A mechanic or a fighter?" Kazuo's gaze met hers, calm, unflinching. "Both. And right now, that's exactly what will keep us alive." Jessica's pride faltered. The woman who had mocked him hours ago now clung to every word. She realized that the man sitting beside her, quiet, stoic, seemingly unremarkable, was far more dangerous and capable than anyone she had ever met. And that realization scared her more than any saboteur could. Then, as if on cue, a sudden jolt rocked the helicopter. The engine groaned, metal creaking under stress. Jessica's pulse skyrocketed. "What now?" she yelled. Kazuo's hands moved with lethal precision, tracing circuits, stabilizing hydraulics, and compensating for the compromised components. "The tail rotor. Someone weakened the mounting bolts. If we push too hard, it will fail completely." Jessica's eyes widened. "You mean we could crash right here?" Kazuo's jaw tightened. "Yes, but not if you follow me, exactly as I say." The desert stretched endlessly below, but there was no time for panic. Every second counted. Kazuo's mind raced through scenarios, countermeasures, and contingencies, calculating risk with the speed of a trained soldier. He could almost feel the enemy watching them, waiting for the slightest mistake. Jessica's hands trembled, but she obeyed, following his precise instructions. The helicopter shuddered violently again, and dust swirled upward, catching the fading light in chaotic patterns. For a moment, it seemed as though gravity itself had turned against them. Then a shadow passed across the cockpit glass, fast, deliberate, almost impossible to see. Jessica gasped. "Kazuo, did you see that?" Kazuo's eyes narrowed. "Yes, they're close, too close." Jessica's mind raced. She had trained for hostile environments, ambushes, and direct combat. But this was a precision strike, a silent threat, someone who wanted them dead and had calculated every possible move. Kazuo's calm was unnerving. He didn't flinch, didn't panic. His hands moved with a confidence that only came from facing death more times than most people could imagine. And for the first time, Jessica realized he wasn't just a mechanic. He was a soldier, an elite soldier. The wind howled outside, whipping dust and debris into the cockpit. The helicopter shuddered again, dangerously close to failure. Jessica gritted her teeth, following Kazuo's instructions, sweat stinging her eyes. Then, without warning, a spark ignited from the engine compartment, tiny but visible, a reminder of how close they were to disaster. Jessica's voice trembled. "Kazuo, what do we do now?" Kazuo's eyes scanned every detail, every potential weakness. His fingers danced over the controls and panels with lethal precision. "We finish what we started. Fly. And don't look down." The helicopter lurched again, the tail rotor groaning under stress. Jessica held her breath, muscles taut, as Kazuo's calm presence guided her through each critical second. Every adjustment, every command, every subtle maneuver meant life or death. And just when they thought they had stabilized the aircraft, another flash of movement outside caught their eyes. Something, or someone, moving with silent purpose toward the hangar. Kazuo's expression hardened. "They're coming, and they're not leaving without us." Jessica's stomach turned. The helicopter, the desert, the encroaching shadows, all combined into a single, terrifying truth. The danger wasn't over, not by a long shot. Her pride had been shattered, her assumptions proven deadly wrong. And in that suspended moment, high above the desert floor, she realized that survival depended on something far more than skill or rank. It depended on trust. Kazuo's voice broke the tense silence. "Hold on, this is far from over." And with that, the helicopter lurched violently again, plunging toward the desert floor, the shadowy threat closing in, leaving both of them on the knife edge between life and death. The helicopter thudded back onto the hangar floor, dust and grit flying through the air like shards of glass. Jessica's hands shook as she climbed out, adrenaline flooding her veins. She leaned against the fuselage, chest heaving, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Her pride was in tatters, replaced by a gnawing awareness. She had been completely wrong about the mechanic, the man she had mocked hours ago. Kazuo stepped down beside her, unscathed, calm as ever. His fingers wiped the sweat and grease from his brow, but the tension in his posture betrayed nothing of the inner storm he had weathered. He had seen danger before, survived situations that would have killed most men twice over, yet even he knew this encounter had been close. Too close. Jessica spun on him, anger flaring in her chest. "What the hell just happened?" Her voice was sharp, almost accusing. "You said this chopper was ready. You lied to me." Kazuo's eyes stayed locked on hers, unwavering. "It wasn't sabotage by accident," he said evenly. "Someone wanted this to fail. They didn't just leave a defective engine, they left traces meant to kill." Jessica's fists clenched. "Traces? You mean they could have gotten us killed?" Her words trembled, but not her anger. "You were supposed to fix it, that's your job." Kazuo's calm voice carried over her storm. "And I did. And we survived. That's the measure of success right now, not your anger." She laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and unpolished. "Measure of success? We nearly died, Kazuo, nearly died. And you think we're safe? You think that fixes everything?" Kazuo's jaw tightened, eyes scanning the hangar as if reading invisible lines of danger in the dimming light. This isn't about me or the helicopter. It's about survival. And right now, you need to listen to me, not argue. Jessica's pride flared. She wanted to lash out, to dominate the narrative, to remind herself that she was the lieutenant, the one in command. But something in Kazuo's stance, in the subtle authority he exuded, kept her from acting. Her body tensed. Her training told her to follow protocol, but instinct screamed that protocol wasn't enough. A sudden sound, a metallic scrape, almost inaudible, made both of them freeze. Jessica's eyes darted toward the hangar doors, heart hammering. What was that? Kazuo didn't answer immediately. He moved silent like a predator. Every step was calculated, controlled. He leaned slightly, listening, scanning, detecting movements that Jessica couldn't even see. The subtle shift in the air, the faint echo of boots against metal, the barely perceptible rhythm of someone approaching, all of it screamed danger. Jessica swallowed hard. Kazuo, someone's here. Kazuo's eyes narrowed. Yes, and they're not leaving empty-handed. Her stomach knotted. Who are they? What do they want? Kazuo's calm exterior didn't waver, but there was steel beneath it. Something we have, or something you have. Either way, they'll take it if we let them. Jessica's mind raced. She had faced threats before, direct combat, hostile environments, ambushes. But this was different. This was deliberate, silent, calculated. Someone had planned this. Someone knew exactly how to exploit weakness. And right now, that someone was inches away. She took a cautious step back, keeping her hands near her sidearm. What do we do? Kazuo's eyes flicked toward her. We survive. That's the only option. A shadow shifted along the hangar wall. Jessica froze, unable to move, unable to think. Kazuo's hand hovered near the tools he had left beside the helicopter. Stay close, he instructed. Do exactly as I say. Jessica's pride bristled, but instinct forced her compliance. She moved toward him, letting his calm authority guide her. Her pulse hammered in her ears. The intruder, whoever it was methodical, precise. They had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Kazuo's gaze flicked to the intruder, and for the first time Jessica noticed a subtle shift in his posture, the faint tightening of muscles, the careful alignment of weight. He was ready, trained, a survivor. She realized then that the man she had mocked hours ago wasn't just a mechanic, he was lethal. A low metallic sound echoed through the hangar, the soft click of a weapon being cocked. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to scream, to flee, to take control. But she stayed, frozen, because she knew instinctively that acting rashly would be fatal. Kazuo's voice cut through the tension, calm and commanding. Move behind the helicopter. Cover is your friend. Watch their movements. Wait for my signal. Jessica obeyed, gripping the fuselage, eyes wide, watching as the intruder made their first deliberate move. A figure emerged from the shadows, clad in black, face obscured. They moved with silent precision, every step calculated. Jessica's mind raced. Who were they? Mercenaries, rogue agents, someone from Kazuo's mysterious past. Kazuo's hands moved with fluid precision, grabbing a tool from the floor, a small, improvised weapon. He didn't aim immediately. He didn't need to. He was assessing, calculating, preparing to strike at the exact moment that would neutralize the threat. Jessica's pulse pounded in her ears. Kazuo, what now? His gaze met hers, calm, deadly. We fight, and we survive. Suddenly, the intruder lunged toward the helicopter's control panel, metal clanging against metal. Jessica instinctively stepped forward, grabbing a wrench and swinging it with every ounce of strength she had. The intruder staggered but didn't fall. Kazuo struck simultaneously, a swift, precise blow that sent the figure sprawling to the floor. Jessica's heart raced. I didn't think we'd actually. Kazuo cut her off. Don't celebrate yet, there may be more. His eyes scanned the hangar. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound amplified. The intruder wasn't working alone, and whatever their goal, it was far from complete. A sudden explosion rocked the far end of the hangar. Dust and debris filled the air, blinding them both momentarily. Jessica coughed, trying to regain focus. Her hands were shaking, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Kazuo moved like a shadow, guiding her back behind the helicopter, assessing the structural damage, checking the engine for vulnerabilities. His calm presence was almost unreal, a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them. Jessica realized something terrifying. This man, the mechanic she had mocked, was not only saving her life. He was orchestrating their survival in real time, thinking 5 steps ahead of their attackers. A second shadow appeared at the far hangar door, movement fast and deliberate. Jessica's stomach dropped. "More of them," she whispered. Kazuo didn't answer. He simply reached for her hand, pulling her closer. "Stay low, stay quiet, trust me." Jessica's mind raced. She had mocked him hours ago, dismissed his abilities, and now she was clinging to him for survival. Pride had no place here. Instinct did. Survival did. The intruders regrouped, moving with precision, circling, calculating, ready to strike again. Kazuo's gaze flicked to Jessica, steady, unflinching. "Ready?" he asked, voice low but commanding. Jessica nodded, her hands gripping the helicopter's metal frame. "Ready," she said, though her voice trembled. Kazuo's fingers tightened around the tool in his hand. "Then we move," he said. And in that moment, the hangar became a battlefield. Shadows danced, metal clanged, dust swirled. Jessica's world narrowed to the man beside her, the quiet, unassuming mechanic who had turned out to be far more than anyone could imagine. And as the intruders advanced, the question hung in the air. Could they survive what was coming next, or was this just the beginning of a fight that neither of them could fully anticipate? The hangar air grew thick with tension, dust, and the acrid scent of oil filling Jessica Harper's lungs as she crouched behind the helicopter. Every muscle in her body screamed to run, to fight, to escape, yet instinct told her to trust the man beside her. Kazuo Tanaka, quiet, precise, lethal, moved with the confidence of someone who had faced death countless times before. Through the dim light, she could make out the intruders' shapes, 3 figures clad in black, their movements silent, deliberate, and calculated. The shadows seemed to merge with the darkness, almost as if the hangar itself was conspiring against them. Jessica's heart hammered so violently she thought it might burst. "They're moving fast," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Kazuo's eyes narrowed, scanning every inch of the hangar. "They're close, too close," he said calmly. "One wrong move and we're done." Jessica swallowed hard. "How do we stop them?" Kazuo didn't answer immediately. Instead, he crouched lower, every motion deliberate, controlled, practiced. His fingers brushed across the edge of the helicopter panel, as if calculating 100 contingencies at once. He was a predator coiled, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "You need to stay low and quiet," he finally said. "Watch my movements. Don't act unless I give the signal." Jessica nodded, though she could feel her pulse thundering in her ears. Her pride, once a shield, was gone. She had mocked this man hours ago, dismissed his abilities, and now the stark reality of survival had stripped away every layer of ego. She had to rely on him, completely. The intruders advanced. One of them, the tallest, moved with uncanny precision, scanning the helicopter for the weak point Kazuo had just repaired. Jessica tensed, her hands tightening around a wrench she had grabbed almost instinctively. She knew instinct alone wouldn't be enough, but maybe, just maybe, it could buy them a second. Kazuo's gaze flicked to her, sharp, commanding, "Now." The first intruder lunged for the helicopter's engine compartment. Kazuo moved like a shadow, intercepting him with a calculated strike. Metal clanged as the figure staggered back, stunned but not defeated. Jessica instinctively swung the wrench, knocking the attacker off balance. The second intruder dove toward her, and instinct took over. She sidestepped and shoved him into a stack of crates. The sound of splintering wood echoed in the hangar. Kazuo didn't pause. He moved fluidly between the attackers, anticipating their moves, striking with precision that left Jessica breathless. Every strike, every deflection, every calculated maneuver spoke of someone trained in lethal combat, not a mechanic, but a soldier, an elite warrior shaped by experience far beyond her imagination. "Jessica," Kazuo shouted over the chaos, "stay behind me." She nodded, her hands trembling, adrenaline coursing through her veins like wildfire. She followed his lead, watching him move with the grace of a predator. The intruders were skilled, no doubt about it, but Kazuo was several steps ahead. Suddenly, a sharp metallic sound echoed through the hangar, a trigger, a warning. The third intruder had drawn a firearm. Jessica's stomach lurched. Her training screamed at her to act, but Kazuo's calm, commanding presence held her in place. "They're armed," she whispered. "Don't engage unless I tell you to," Kazuo replied, eyes locked on the figure. "We survive, that's the priority." The intruder raised the weapon, finger twitching over the trigger. Jessica's breath hitched. Kazuo's hand shot out, catching the attacker's wrist mid-movement, twisting it with a controlled force that made her gasp. The weapon clattered to the ground. Jessica's voice trembled. How are you doing that?" Kazuo's expression didn't change. Experience. She realized then that every motion he made, every instinct was honed through countless trials, the kind she couldn't even imagine. He was deadly, efficient, and terrifying in his calmness. And yet beneath it all there was a methodical logic, a calculation that ensured survival. A sudden explosion rocked the far end of the hangar. Dust, sparks, and fragments of metal filled the air. Jessica coughed, trying to clear her vision. Through the haze she saw movement, shadows twisting, intruders regrouping. They weren't finished. They were patient, calculated, and relentless. Kazuo's eyes hardened. "They're not leaving, not without us." Jessica's pulse raced. "Why us? What do they want?" Kazuo's jaw tightened. "Something I have, something you have. They won't explain, they just want it, and they'll take it if we let them." Her mind spun. She had trained for hostile environments, ambushes, and missions that demanded quick thinking, but this was different. The intruders weren't random. They were deliberate, tactical, and dangerous beyond measure. And right now, survival depended on following Kazuo's every command. The intruders moved again, converging on the helicopter. Jessica could see the shadows of their weapons, their silent coordination. She gripped the fuselage, willing herself to remain calm. Kazuo's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, steadying her. "Remember everything I've shown you. Move with me, not ahead of me. If we split our focus, we die." Jessica nodded, swallowing her fear. Her pride had been stripped away, replaced by an acute awareness. She had underestimated this man at her peril. He wasn't just a mechanic. He was a soldier, a master of calculated action, and right now, he was the key to survival. A sharp movement at the far corner caught Kazuo's eye. His body tensed, coiled, ready to strike. Jessica felt a thrill of fear and awe, every fiber of his being radiated lethal capability. Then a new sound, soft, deliberate, almost inaudible, echoed through the hangar. Kazuo froze, listening. He glanced at Jessica, eyes narrowing. "They're splitting up. One is going for the exit, probably to call reinforcements." Jessica's stomach dropped. "So there's more of them." Kazuo didn't answer immediately. Instead, he moved silently, positioning himself between Jessica and the intruder moving toward the exit. His movements were fluid, precise, like a predator in perfect balance. The intruder reached the door, hand on the handle. Kazuo struck. A quick, controlled movement and the figure crumpled silently to the floor. Jessica's breath caught. She had never seen someone move with that level of efficiency, calmness, and deadly intent. "Stay with me," Kazuo said, voice low but firm. "We're not done yet, and whatever is coming next will be worse." Jessica's chest heaved, adrenaline and fear combining into a strange clarity. She followed his lead, knowing instinctively that survival depended entirely on this man, the quiet, unassuming mechanic who had been hiding a past more lethal than she could comprehend. From the shadows at the far end of the hangar, movement shifted again. Jessica's pulse quickened. The intruders were regrouping, calculating, waiting for the next opportunity. Kazuo's eyes flicked to the shadows, cold, precise, and unyielding. "They're patient," he muttered. "They're waiting for us to make a mistake, but we don't make mistakes." Jessica nodded, gripping the helicopter's metal frame. Her hands were slick with sweat. Her mind raced, trying to anticipate Kazuo's next move, trying to predict the shadows that seemed to move with silent, malevolent purpose. Then from the corner of her eye she saw it, a faint glint of metal, moving faster than human reflex should allow. A weapon aimed directly at Kazuo. Before she could react, Kazuo spun, intercepting the intruder with a precision blow that sent them sprawling into the dust. Jessica's heart leapt into her throat. Kazuo's eyes met hers, calm and unyielding. "This isn't over," he said, voice low but firm. "And when it ends, we'll know the truth." Jessica's hands trembled. Her pride had been shattered. Her assumptions had been destroyed. And now, as the shadows shifted and the intruders regrouped, she realized the terrifying truth. Survival depended not on rank, not on weapons, not on training alone. It depended entirely on the man beside her. And in that suspended moment, with the desert wind whipping dust into the hangar and shadows closing in, she understood something else. Kazuo Tanaka's past, hidden behind the guise of a quiet mechanic, was about to collide with the present in a way neither of them could predict. The intruders were patient, calculated, dangerous. And they were not finished. The hangar had transformed from a quiet, sunlit workspace into a war zone. Dust swirled through beams of fatting sunlight, mixing with the acrid smell of metal and oil. Shadows danced along the walls, stretching and twisting, concealing danger with every flicker. Jessica Harper crouched low behind the helicopter, her chest heaving, her hands trembling. Her confidence had evaporated hours ago, replaced by raw, primal fear. Fear tempered only by the presence of the man beside her. Kazuo Tanaka moved like a shadow. Each step was measured, deliberate, deadly. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. Every motion carried precision honed over years of impossible missions, clandestine operations, and life-or-death decisions. To Jessica, he was both terrifying and mesmerizing, a master of calculated control in a world gone chaotic. The intruders were regrouping. 3 of them, clad in black, moved silently, their weapons poised, calculating their next move. The taller one had recovered from the first strike, limping slightly but still dangerous. Kazuo's eyes flicked between them, assessing. Every detail mattered: the position of their feet, the angle of their weapons, the tension in their muscles. Jessica's voice was barely audible. What do we do?" Kazuo's calm gaze met hers. "We fight. We survive, and we move only when I give the signal." The first intruder lunged toward them, a glint of steel flashing as he swung a pipe. Kazuo intercepted with ease, sidestepping and delivering a precise strike to the attacker's midsection. The man crumpled, coughing and groaning, but not entirely incapacitated. Kazuo didn't waste time. He spun, catching the second intruder in a sweeping motion that sent him sprawling into a stack of crates. Wood splintered, dust erupted into the air, and Jessica blinked against the chaos. Her hands gripped the helicopter's fuselage, knuckles white. She had no idea how Kazuo could move like that, so fast, so controlled, yet so deliberate. Every strike was economical, no wasted energy, no hesitation. She realized with a mix of awe and terror that he was lethal in a way she had never imagined. The third intruder, the one who had drawn a firearm, raised his weapon again. Jessica's stomach lurched. This was no longer a training exercise. This was life and death. She glanced at Kazuo. He didn't flinch. He didn't panic. He simply analyzed, calculated, and waited. "You'll need to disarm him," Kazuo murmured almost to himself. then neutralize the threat. Jessica's heart pounded. Me. Yes, you're here, you're part of this, do it. Her hands trembled as she gripped a wrench, her mind racing. She had no formal combat training beyond basic firearm handling, yet instinct took over. She lunged at the intruder as he took aim, swinging the wrench with all her strength. The man staggered, dropping the gun, and she slammed into him with every ounce of energy she had. Kazuo didn't miss a beat. He moved like liquid, intercepting the taller intruder and delivering a precise blow that left the man groaning on the floor. Another attacker advanced, but Kazuo was ready, catching him mid-lunge with a spinning strike that sent him crashing into the far wall. Jessica's chest heaved, adrenaline surging through her veins. I did it, she whispered, disbelief in her voice. Kazuo's calm eyes met hers. Yes, but don't let it go to your head, this isn't over. A sudden metallic scrape echoed from the far end of the hangar. The remaining intruder, hidden in the shadows, had pulled a concealed knife. Jessica's stomach dropped. Before she could react, Kazuo moved, intercepting the man with lethal precision. A flash of movement, a sharp strike, and the knife clattered across the floor. Kazuo's calm authority radiated, unshakable, as he assessed the remaining threat. Jessica's mind reeled. This man, the quiet mechanic she had mocked, was an elite soldier. Every movement, every decision, every strike spoke of a past she couldn't even imagine, a life of danger, discipline, and survival beyond comprehension. Her pulse was still racing, but she realized something important. She had survived because she trusted him. Not out of loyalty, not out of duty, but out of instinct. And instinct, she now understood, was sometimes the only thing standing between life and death. The intruder who had survived the initial onslaught now attempted a desperate maneuver, lunging toward Kazuo with reckless force. Kazuo sidestepped, grabbing the man and throwing him into a stack of crates. Dust exploded into the air, and the intruder groaned, stunned but not fully down. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. There's still one, she whispered. Kazuo's eyes scanned the hangar, calculating the remaining threats. Yes, but the real danger is not who's left, it's what they came for. Jessica frowned. What do you mean? Kazuo's expression hardened. They weren't just after the helicopter, they were after you and something I have hidden. Her stomach dropped. Me, what could they possibly want from me? Kazuo didn't answer immediately. His eyes flicked to the shadows, analyzing every movement. You'll understand soon enough, he said finally. But for now, survival comes first. The final intruder lunged again, faster this time, desperation in every movement. Kazuo reacted instantly, intercepting with a spinning strike that knocked the man off balance. Jessica, following his lead, struck with the wrench again, sending him sprawling to the ground. For a moment the hangar was silent, dust settling like a curtain on the chaos. Jessica's chest heaved, sweat stinging her eyes. She had survived. They had survived. But the threat was far from over. Kazuo's gaze softened slightly as he looked at her. You did well, he said quietly. But don't let this fool you. They'll be back. And next time it may not be just the intruders we have to worry about. Jessica's hands trembled, her mind racing. I don't understand, she whispered. What do you mean? Kazuo didn't answer immediately. Instead, he moved toward the helicopter, checking the panels, the rotors, the engine. His movements were precise, methodical, almost ritualistic. He was a soldier, a mechanic, a survivor, a man shaped by a life of danger and discipline that few could comprehend. Jessica realized, with a mix of awe and fear, that she had been entirely wrong about him. She had mocked him hours ago, dismissed his abilities, and now she knew the truth. Kazuo Tanaka was far more than he appeared. He was a force to be reckoned with, and if they were going to survive the next encounter, she would have to trust him completely. A faint noise from the far corner of the hangar made both of them freeze. Shadows shifted. Dust stirred. The intruders were regrouping, and whatever they had come for was not finished. Kazuo's jaw tightened. They're patient, calculated, dangerous, but we'll be ready. Jessica nodded, gripping the helicopter's metal frame. She had no idea what Kazuo's past held, what secrets he carried, or why the intruders had come for them. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty: survival depended entirely on the man beside her. And in that moment, as shadows lengthened and the desert wind whispered through the hangar, Jessica understood the terrifying truth. Kazuo Tanaka's past was about to collide with the present. And when it did, neither of them would be the same. The hangar lay in uneasy silence, dust and smoke curling in fatting shafts of sunlight. Jessica Harper leaned against the helicopter, her palms slick with sweat, her chest still heaving from the brutal confrontation. Her body ached, but adrenaline and the shock of survival kept her rooted to the spot. Kazuo Tanaka crouched beside the helicopter, running a careful hand over the metal panels, checking for damage. His movements were calm, precise, but his expression had darkened. Something had shifted in his demeanor, a shadow passing over his eyes that Jessica had never seen before. It was a look that spoke of buried wars, of missions only he had survived, of choices that had left their mark on a man long before she had ever met him. "Who were they?" Jessica asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Who sent them?" Kazuo's eyes flicked toward her, dark and unreadable. They were looking for something, and not just the helicopter. Jessica frowned, confusion and fear warping her features. Not the helicopter. Then what, me? Kazuo didn't answer immediately. His gaze drifted to the shadows in the corners of the hangar, as though listening for echoes that only he could hear. The weight of his silence pressed against her, making her uneasy in a way she had never experienced. Finally he spoke, voice low and deliberate. "This isn't just about you, Jessica, or about me. It's about what I left behind." Jessica's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Kazuo's eyes darkened, and for the first time he allowed a glimpse of the past to surface. "I was part of Japan's 1st Airborne Brigade. Elite. Trained for missions that few survived. Covert operations, intelligence retrieval, extraction, things that happen far from public view. Things you can't imagine." Jessica blinked. Her mind raced. The quiet, unassuming mechanic she had mocked hours ago was an elite soldier. It seemed impossible. Yet every move, every calculated strike, every instinct he had displayed made perfect sense now. You didn't tell anyone," she whispered. Kazuo shook his head, expression grim. "It was necessary. My past is dangerous, and it follows me, always." Jessica's fear shifted to a mixture of awe and unease. "So, these people." "They know," Kazuo said quietly. "They've been tracking me for years, waiting, planning. They'll do anything to retrieve what I protected, and now you're caught in the middle." Jessica's pulse quickened. "Caught in the middle? Kazuo, she stopped, her words faltering. Fear gnawed at her, but so did a new determination. She had survived so far against impossible odds relying on him, and now she realized survival wasn't enough. If they were going to escape this, she had to fight beside him, not just as a follower but as a partner. Kazuo's eyes flicked to her, sharp, assessing. "Do you understand what I'm saying?" "I do," she replied, voice firm, "and I'm ready." A faint sound made both of them tense. Footsteps, deliberate, controlled. The intruders had regrouped. They hadn't left. They had been waiting for the right moment to strike again. Kazuo moved to the helicopter's edge, scanning every corner, every shadow. "They know we're vulnerable," he muttered, "but we're stronger together than they expect." Jessica swallowed, her mind racing. She had underestimated him. She had mocked him. She had nearly died because of her own arrogance. And now she understood. Kazuo's past was a weapon, one that could save them both if they used it correctly. The first intruder appeared, stepping out from the shadows with a calculated stride. Jessica raised her hands, gripping a wrench, ready to act. Kazuo moved forward with lethal grace, intercepting the attacker with a precise strike that sent him sprawling to the floor. The second intruder lunged from a different angle, knife flashing in the dim light. Kazuo pivoted, disarming him with a swift, controlled movement, sending the weapon clattering across the concrete. Jessica stepped forward instinctively, striking the intruder with the wrench again, sending him crashing into a stack of crates. Dust erupted into the air, and the intruder groaned, stunned but not fully incapacitated. Kazuo's eyes scanned the final intruder, the one who had orchestrated much of the chaos. He moved like a shadow, silent, deadly, precise. His past training and instincts merged seamlessly with the immediate threat. He was not just defending the helicopter. He was defending Jessica. He was defending a secret that had cost him more than anyone could imagine. "You need to stay behind me," Kazuo said quietly, voice calm but firm. Jessica nodded, following his lead. She had learned quickly, instinctively, that survival depended on his guidance. But now something had changed. She was no longer merely following. She was fighting beside him, ready to face whatever came next. The final intruder advanced, weapon raised. Kazuo's hand shot out, catching the attacker mid-strike and twisting with lethal precision. The intruder fell to the ground, groaning, weapon useless. Jessica moved simultaneously, striking with the wrench to ensure the threat was neutralized. For a moment the hangar was silent again. Dust settled, and the echo of metal and concrete reverberated through the space. Both Jessica and Kazuo stood, breathing heavily, surveying the aftermath. Kazuo's eyes flicked to Jessica. "This isn't over," he said. "They'll regroup, they always do, and next time they won't come in half measures." Jessica's hands were trembling, her chest heaving. I understand," she said, "and I'm ready, whatever comes next." Kazuo nodded, his expression unreadable but approving. "Good, because what comes next will test more than your strength or skill. It will test your trust and your courage." A faint sound reached their ears, the distant hum of engines. Reinforcements, escape, or something far more dangerous. Kazuo's gaze hardened. "They're not done, and whatever arrives next, it will be worse." Jessica's stomach tightened. She realized then that the battle in the hangar was only the beginning. The intruders' motives, their persistence, their skill, all pointed to something larger, something beyond immediate comprehension. And Kazuo's past, long hidden and carefully concealed, was about to collide with the present in a way that would change everything. Her pulse pounded, but fear had been tempered by something new, resolve. She had survived, she had fought, and she was ready to face whatever came next. Kazuo's hand brushed hers briefly, a silent acknowledgement of trust, of partnership, of shared survival. "We move together," he said. "No mistakes, no hesitation, trust me." Jessica met his gaze, nodding. "Together." And as the hangar doors groaned under the desert wind, shadows shifting beyond the edges of their vision, the true danger began to stir. Because this was not the end of the attack, it was the opening move. And Kazuo Tanaka's past, long buried, was about to explode into the present with a force that neither of them could fully anticipate. The desert wind howled outside, rattling the hangar doors as Kazuo Tanaka and Jessica Harper crouched behind the helicopter. Dust swirled in the fading light, casting eerie shadows across the floor. The intruders were not finished. They were patient, relentless, and perfectly coordinated. But Kazuo's calm, lethal presence radiated authority, shaping the battlefield with a precision born from years of elite combat. Jessica's palms were slick with sweat, her chest heaving. She had survived the ambushes, the sabotage, the chaos, and somehow made it through multiple lethal encounters alongside Kazuo. But now, the tension in the air felt different. He was preparing for something bigger, something decisive. "They're regrouping," Kazuo murmured, eyes scanning every corner. "They know we're weakened and they're coming for a final strike. We need to end this before reinforcements arrive." Jessica swallowed hard, gripping a wrench tightly. "And if we can't?" Kazuo's gaze was steady, unwavering. "Then we adapt, and we survive." The intruders emerged from the shadows, 3 figures moving with surgical precision. The tallest, the one who had staggered during the initial fight, stepped forward, eyes cold and calculating. His movements were deliberate, almost mocking. Jessica noticed something subtle in Kazuo's expression, a flash of recognition. He knew this man. He had faced him before, years ago perhaps. And now here he was again, a ghost from the past, armed and dangerous. "They've sent someone personal," Kazuo murmured. "Someone who knows me, someone who will stop at nothing." Jessica's stomach tightened. "Why? What do they want with you?" Kazuo didn't answer, only adjusted his stance, coiled like a spring. "Enough talk," he said, voice low and precise. "It ends now." The first intruder lunged with a knife, swift and precise. Kazuo moved like water, sidestepping, disarming, and incapacitating the man with one clean strike. The attacker crumpled, barely able to rise. Jessica mirrored his movements, instinctively striking with the wrench, knocking another intruder off balance. The air in the hangar was charged, every second stretching with tension. Dust rose from scuffed concrete as metal clashed against metal. The echoes of grunts and crashing crates reverberated across the walls, a chaotic symphony of survival. Then the final intruder, the tallest, stepped forward, weapon raised. Kazuo's eyes hardened. This man was a shadow from a past mission, one that had left scars, secrets, and unfinished business. Every movement he made was familiar, practiced, and deadly. Jessica instinctively stepped forward, ready to act, but Kazuo's hand on her shoulder stopped her. "Wait," he said. "Observe, learn, strike only when necessary." The intruder advanced and Kazuo reacted instantly. Every strike was precise, every block efficient, every movement a deadly dance. Jessica watched, awestruck, as the man she had mocked hours ago revealed a history she could hardly comprehend. A soldier, an elite operative, a master of calculated combat. The battle escalated. The intruder's strikes were vicious, testing Kazuo's defenses, probing for weakness. Kazuo countered effortlessly, using minimal energy, exploiting openings, predicting every move. It was a duel of skill, experience, and survival instinct, a fight where one mistake meant death. Jessica felt her fear transform into determination. She couldn't just watch. She had survived alongside him this far, she would fight with him now. She swung the wrench carefully, precisely, hitting the intruder from an angle Kazuo hadn't accounted for. The man faltered and Kazuo seized the opportunity, delivering a final, incapacitating strike. The tallest intruder collapsed, groaning, unconscious but alive. The hangar fell silent, dust hanging in the air like a shroud. The intruders were neutralized, but the danger wasn't fully gone. Reinforcements could arrive at any moment. Kazuo moved swiftly to the helicopter, checking every panel, every bolt, every rotor. "We need to leave," he said. Jessica nodded, heart still racing. "And you're past all of this. How did it catch up with you here?" Kazuo's jaw tightened. "I left pieces of it everywhere. Skills, contacts, enemies. Some unfinished business always has a way of resurfacing, and now it's caught up to us." Jessica's admiration deepened, mixed with a sense of humility. The quiet mechanic she had mocked, underestimated, and dismissed hours ago was not only an elite soldier, but a man who carried the weight of history, danger, and responsibility in every movement. "We need to go," he repeated, urgency creeping into his voice, "before more arrive." They moved toward the exit, side by side, the desert wind whipping against their faces as they climbed into the helicopter. The engines roared to life, a symphony of power and survival. Jessica gripped the controls, guided by Kazuo's calm presence, and they lifted off the ground, leaving the hangar behind. As they soared above the desert, Kazuo's eyes remained focused, scanning the horizon. "They'll regroup. They always do, but we have the advantage now." Jessica exhaled, her body relaxing slightly but her mind racing. "And if they come back?" Kazuo's gaze softened briefly, a rare flicker of vulnerability. Then we fight again, but this time we're prepared together. Jessica looked at him, realization dawning. She had mocked him, judged him, and underestimated him. Now she saw the truth. Kazuo Tanaka was not just a mechanic, not just a soldier, but a force of nature shaped by experience, discipline, and survival. And together, they were unstoppable. The desert stretched beneath them, a vast expanse of orange and gold, beautiful and deadly. Jessica's pulse slowed, her fear giving way to a new clarity. She had survived, learned, and grown. She had seen courage, skill, and resilience in its purest form. Kazuo glanced at her, the faintest hint of a smile crossing his features. "You've done well," he said quietly. Jessica met his gaze, a mixture of exhaustion, pride, and awe in her eyes. "We've done well," she corrected. The helicopter soared higher, leaving the hangar and its shadows behind. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the desert in blood-red hues, Jessica understood one truth: danger never truly ends. The past catches up, shadows linger, and survival is a constant battle. Yet for the first time in hours, maybe days, she felt hope. Not because the fight was over, but because she was no longer alone. Kazuo Tanaka's past was formidable, mysterious, and dangerous. But beside him, Jessica had found her own courage, her own strength, and the knowledge that together they could survive anything. The horizon stretched endlessly ahead, promising both peril and possibility. And in that moment, the helicopter cutting through the desert wind became more than a machine of survival. It became a symbol of resilience, trust, and the unbreakable bond forged in the fires of danger. As the first stars pierced the twilight sky, Kazuo spoke softly, voice carrying both gravity and calm assurance. "This isn't the end, Jessica, but we survived, and that's the beginning of everything." Jessica exhaled, letting the tension drain from her body, though her mind remained alert. "Then let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes next," she replied. Kazuo nodded, eyes scanning the horizon, ever vigilant. Always ready, always moving forward. The helicopter disappeared into the desert night, engines roaring, dust trailing behind like a comet. Shadows receded, enemies scattered, and for a fleeting moment the world seemed still. But Jessica knew, as did Kazuo, the past was never far behind, and the next challenge was always waiting just beyond the horizon. And yet, for the first time, they faced it together, unstoppable, unshakable, and ready.